What's up, guys? Just got here. Got to Massachusetts from work, so gonna go visit Cape Cod Canal.
Came to Cape Cod for a week during the new moon. Came actually 3 days before the new moon and 3 days after it, because that's when the water starts to get higher than normal and lower than normal. So you want to kind of build up to that new moon. And don't get me wrong, new moons may have very poor fishing because of light at the canal. So um, the week before I actually went there, there was a report that there was a lot of sand eels breaking, and what I found was they use these green colored sand eels. It looks like a mackerel, but looks like also a sand eel at the same time. And that's what a lot of the regs around here use. I don't have that. What I did bring was I brought these gulp sand eels that have a really good action on the floor. Or not on the floor, on the tail. And I let it drop to bottom after I cast it. You gotta be able to at least cast around like half the canal. Don't get me wrong, distance does not really matter, but at times these rockfish are a lot deeper than they're basically in the center of the canal, and there are places where it drops off 40 feet to my knowledge. That's what the depth charts have stated. And there's these huge tankers that also pass by, so I wouldn't doubt that it's at least 40 feet at some areas. I don't know if they dredge it, but I'm using a 2-ounce jig head, and I'm able to get it out there. That's 40-pound Jerry Brown braid, and it has a hollow core, so it does not fly out as smoothly as some of these other braid that don't have a hollow core. The hollow cord is nice, but it actually makes the braid thicker. So, not too nice in a surf cast situation, but in a boat situation where you're maybe dropping vertically down, it's great for that aspect. So, I make sure I cast it angled towards my left, let it drop, and once it drops to probably a solid 20 feet, you don't want to be all the way on the bottom. You want to be in the strike zone where they're able to see it, and they're going to be tracking it. So once I let it drift, once I am parallel to the actual jig, that's when I start jigging it up and down. And you're going to watch on this cast, there's a really nice hit. And the key with eels, with any jig that has one hook, you want to make sure the fish commits all the way. That's what I found. Especially with these new moons, I also found that the low tide has a lot more action than the high tide. The reason why is that when the water is moved out, it causes all the fish to compact into less water. And they have, for the most part, they do travel through the canal. They push the bait in and then they just keep chasing them down. There were a lot of days where the fish are busting on top water, and even on situations of the top water, you want to be making sure you're on the bottom. Reason being, the schoolies are on top, and the bigger fish are always on the bottom for the most part. There are days where the larger fish will get active, but the way that striped bass act is that they will stay under those schoolies and eat whatever drops to them. And with the canal, you want to... Some of these guys, they're out there 1 o'clock in the morning, standing on a rock, just waiting till 4 o'clock when the bite happens. Mondays and Thursdays are commercial days, so if you're going to just enjoy yourself and you don't want a huge crowd, best days are Mondays and Thursday. And weekends are usually really busy as well. What I found was Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, they're great days to fish. Not many people out on the rocks. And when I say commercial, these guys have commercial licenses to be able to catch and sell fish from shore. If you want to catch and sell fish on a boat, you need a boating license in Maine. It's not. It's considered different things. In Maryland, if you have a commercial, I guess it doesn't really matter where you catch them. You're just able to sell them. And a lot of these guys, they also don't wear corkers, especially with all this seaweed, which I kind of found shocking. Some of them stand barefoot on these rocks, very slippery rocks. But this was probably a 35, 34-inch fish. Real nice fish here. Goal here is to get it out back into the water as soon as possible. So I'm just going to pop it out real quick, take a quick video of it, and release it right back in. It's tough. It's tough to get down to those rocks. There it is. So, as you can tell, sand eel, when it hits, the first hit, you don't want to yank it out of its mouth on the first hit. You want to wait till that second, third hit. Once it has it in its mouth, then you yank. These fish will not just spit it out, especially if it's realistic enough. If they get spooked out, they may spit it out. Other than that, they're going to keep swallowing it. And let me see, what else did I learn?
Yeah, going all the way down there. That's a dang workout.
I'm breathing really heavily. So the sand eel was a really good jig for me. I found that all the fish I caught were actually on sand eel. And I brought the magic swimmers, which are great for that mid-water. And if you do bring magic swimmers to the canal, make sure you get the sinking version. The floating version is not helpful at all. You can't cast it out there. You can't get it down. And you want to make sure you also bring a reel with some great line lay.
Yeah,
that's
they're
a
busting.
big.
They're busting. Were you here yesterday?
No, how was yesterday?
So the opposite side of that is where a lot of the rigs just hang out. That's a 50-foot drop, and I mean they're cursing at each other, getting into fights, cutting each other's lines. It's a mess over there. And supposedly that same week I was there was a lot of thefts. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to scare people out of the canal. Beats me. I don't really care. I just make sure I take care of myself and that I'm aware of my surroundings at all times. So this is back on it was a outgoing tide, and the way that these two bays work is that when it doesn't matter if it's a high tide or low tide, that's just going to affect the water difference, the height of the water. But if Buzzard Bay has more water, the water will go up to Cape Cod. If Cape Cod has more water, the water will move down to Buzzard Bay. This is irrelevant to if it's a high tide or low tide. That is what I found. Maybe it's just because I went during a new moon. I'm not entirely sure. This is another bass, much smaller. I want to say in the 25 to 28 inch range. I was going to just handline it up, but I figured I'm not going to risk that, and fish may just rip right out. Again, this was on sand eel. The mackerel were not in at the time. I think the mac run is in. They say it's going to be in September, but I do not know for sure. It could be later. this month, who knows. The fact was, I did see mackerel, so if you were using a mackerel lure, you do still have a chance to catch them. And there are tons of squid in here as well, so if you have squid jigs, those work perfectly as well. They love squid, but more than that, they love mackerel. Sand eel's also great here too. So sand eel jig, mackerel jig, and a squid jig. Those are the three probably biggest jigs slash lures you want to take, and make sure they're in the 2-ounce plus range. You want to make sure you get it as deep as possible. That way you get the largest fish from the school. And again, I'm gonna go down and pick it up. And there's actually a clip of me catching a squid. I did some squid fishings with some Cambodians at night. I was trying to catch striped bass at night. As you know, they're nocturnal creatures, so they feed during the night. And we were trying to catch squid, but there was a lot of schoolies tearing up the squid, so they didn't have a really good luck in catching squid. I did catch one, but again, they left early after catching maybe 20, 30 of them.
Because this, they don't have a too big.
And with this, you just let it drop all the way to bottom.
That's really good for sashimi.
Quickly pull it up 5 feet and let it drop back down.
Let me show you a trick.
Oh.
So what you do is just.
And I also went on a Nantucket trip to catch some fluke. So I did some really good fluke fishing. Caught 5 flukes. I felt like they were in the 26-inch range, but got back home and measured it. They were all 24, 25. I think the largest one may have been 26. Again, I didn't measure all of them. I just measured the one I had because I shared them to all my friends and family. And just jigging it up and down was crucial. And again, even with the fluke, the best bite was around 5, 6 o'clock. I think I caught 3 of my 24, 25-inch fluke within 30 minutes at 6 o'clock. This is just a one-off situation. That was midday. This was a good spot, but some of these other guys, they were pulling up a 30-inch fluke. 30-inch. That's 10, 11-pound fluke. All the ones from 26, I think they're about 6 pounds. 24, 25 inches, 6 pounds. Don't get me wrong. You could have a 21-inch fluke that is easily 6 pounds. It all depends on just how fat it is. Some are just thinner than others. Some are fatter than others. And what they bite is, they love the nuclear chicken, and they love the pink and white one. I think it's called penny pink.
Holy shit.
Those are really good. I'm using a 8-ounce bucktail. There's tons of tangles because there's 40 people on the boat. And I found that jigging it actually kind of spooks the fluke out. They don't bite it. They like the drift. We're drifting, I think, an hour at a time on this boat. And yeah, they just did a really good job. We go through all these sandy bottoms and just drift it. And if they're there, they're there. And I did bleed that fish after getting my rod back ready. There was a tangle right there, and I brought it up. Most of the times when you do have a fish on, ends up being a tangle because it's moving around, and other people have their
other side of the swivel.
No, you can cut it on
stuff.
this side.
So
It would be better.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense actually. You're right. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
So there's a footage. I just want to keep this going because the guy next to me does catch a 9. I think it's a 9.8 pounder. And if you didn't see that, that was a
Not yet. One
what is
sec.
it?
You have red.
The
red
tsunami
wave? Give me just a
glass minnow. I actually, after use of it, I am not a fan of it. I bought 3 of those just to test them out, and After two
Yeah, I know, that's what I
flukes,
was
the
saying.
hook broke.
I was like, holy shit.
Comment, is he up?
And this wasn't just one of the magic swimmers, it was two. So if you're going to Nantucket to do some flounder fishing, I highly do not recommend that. Use a teaser with a nice hook. I'm talking a big hook, thick hook. These flounders will break any thin hooks. It just pops right out. Behind me, it's there was a nice old gentleman. His name was Bob, and Alex is the guy in the blue.
You're good. Yeah.
They gave me
thank you.
plenty of gulp to use. They were so nice. They brought, I mean, these guys, they bring bags and gallons, 5-gallon buckets of gulp. 5-gallon. I'm not talking. This is not just gulp juice. This is 5 gallons of gulp.
You don't have a net here, Bob.
It was sickening. I brought 5 packs, but anyhow, these guys are nice enough to just help everybody get on the fish. And I only had nuclear chicken, so they gave me some penny pink ones and all these other colors. Chartreuse wasn't too hot, but nuclear chicken. I think it's something with the color change. They do like that chartreuse color, but they also do like a slightly pinkish color. I guess it kind of represents like the porgy color. I think porgy have like a slightly pinkish color, and they love eating porgy whole. So, hope you enjoyed it. I loved going to Cape Cod. It's probably going to be another trip, maybe a couple years down the line. And yeah, hopefully you learned as much as I did. This was my first time going, so I was just testing it out, see what kind of fishing I should be doing. And
That's a good one.
this is a 9.8. People are looking at it and saying that's a 9.
Patience paid off.
Look at that doormat. The size of his leg.
Want my place?
Just stay posted. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe.
Thank you.
That's a good one. Yeah, let me get you on camera with that.
Hold it for a second.
Yeah, I got it. Go, go, go.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Oh.
9-3.
Hey, can you wait until my brother goes?
Now we're talking.
Bob deserves one. He's another guy who's been
Alright, he's
fishing his whole life. Lucky to catch, I think, 6 or 7 pounds.
Yeah, that's all he needs. Just one
I
good
thought
one.
this was 10. It feels like it.
Look at the teeth on those. My gosh.
Where did you go?
Damn.
It's coming to the end of the video, so I just wanted to thank you for watching. If you watched it all the way to the end, I know some of the areas might be unbearable,
Oh, no, don't say that.
but it's fortunate that this
Thank you.
flounder was barely just shy of 10 pounds. A 10-pound flounder is considered 10 years old. Can you believe that? 10 years old for a 10-pound flounder. That's generally the age. So
Hold that a little further.
this whole
There
trip
you go.
was, I think, a total of 5 fish that were over 10 pounds were caught.
Okay.
Over 10 pounds were caught.
Okay.
So these are a fish of a lifetime, and which is why a lot of people are taking pictures like this. I mean, you only need to catch one 10-pounder in your life. I wouldn't say it's really great eating, but still, I mean, at this point they gaff them, and you might as well eat them. And They're good eating, but it's not something you eat like sashimi style. But anyhow,
I can't get that goddamn 10 pounder.
thanks for watching,
Trying to
guys.
get a 10-pounder.
Yeah. I've got 9, I've got 8.
Yeah, when they're a little bigger, you know, when they're 18, 19 inches, you just give it to somebody.